Hello, and welcome to the weekly spinner rack. This is just how I talk every week. My audience loves it. Are you new to this? This is normal. Look at that. Folks, that was actually a prop. Welcome to the weekly spinner rack. Marvel gave these out free for Free Comic Book Day, or was it actually more just like a freebie for their new comic Blood Hunt, now that I think of it? Yeah, sure. I have details about comic books, correct? Well, this is a show about comics. It's a weekly show where we're going to talk about things like the latest comics that came out, and we're going to talk about things that were in the comic book news sphere. That's a term. And we're going to get some opinions from people that are even in the chat room. Look at that. I was promised a life-altering stream. Yes, not a live stream. I'm talking about my urine stream. I'm going to show it to everybody to show how healthy and clear it is. I'm very healthy. It's not yellow, it's clear. That's what I promised people. No, I don't know where I'm going with that. All right. I missed out on those. Yeah, well, not every store had them, but look at that. Marvel just pulling out all the stops. How long did it take to do that thumbnail? About 5 seconds. This is very much about comics. You forgot about Blood Hunt? Blood Hunt came out in 2 versions, including, look at that, a red polybag, indicating this is a little more violent than the regular release. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? Don't cross the streams. Good advice in Ghostbusters, good advice in life. You know, no matter how close you are to somebody else, don't bother crossing the streams. Use your own urinal. That's the kind of quality advice you get from a quality host. Yes, if this is your first time checking it out, I'm sure I've won you over by now. We are going to have a fun show. There is a bunch of interesting news, a lot of indie comics news this week, which I kind of like. Stuff that I think is going to be interesting. Yes, I did open this bag. There is zero value to this comic now. No, I'm looking forward to talking about the comics. In fact, one thing I'm looking forward to talking about with comics is this past week was Free Comic Book Day. Started in 2002. So if we include that year, that makes this one, what, the 23rd event? Is my math there right? I think it's the 23rd year doing a Free Comic Book Day, which is not free for the stores, by the way. They still have to buy those comics from the retailers, but I believe that they get a pretty good discount, and that a lot of the shipping companies also gives a big discount, if not free. But they are buying that stuff that's given away. I had a friend that got me a bunch of comics. I have to work on the weekends, but I got 9 different Free Comic Book Day books. And I thought what would be fun is, let's start things off. I'm going to add something here. Let's do a tier list. Out of the 9 books that I read, I'm going to rank them, because Free Comic Book Day can give you a really cool taste of a new book. It can give you a full issue of something you haven't read before. And sometimes it's just a marketing tool. Yeah. Most stores, I think, limit you to maybe 5, but you know, there's more than one store. I've got more than one friend. So let's start off here with the DC book. DC Absolute Power, they call it. And so this is an upcoming event for this summer that DC is going to do. I'm going to say that with this art and with this story, they're really only giving you a tease as to what's coming. It's not bad, though. At least you sort of get a story. I'm going to put this one at a B. Absolute Power, out of the Free Comic Book Day books. I might have to like rework my tier list, but right now I'm going to say it's a B, because you get a bit of a story, you get the premise. It's not just sort of it's not just marketing. You get a bit of a story. All right. Next up, we've got Marvels. We did DC, now we've got Marvel. And Marvel gives you a little bit of an ultimate story. as well as sorry, I've got the actual comics here, so I'm going to like refer to them a little bit to refresh my memory. Oh yeah, and a little bit of a Spider-Man story, but this thing is flimsy. This is below. I'd call C mid and D as like not great. I'm going to put it at D, not because of the quality of the actual pages per se, but just that it's just a tease. All it is like giving you a few pages to tease to make you want to buy something. And the Spider-Man story did nothing for me, but the Ultimates one was okay. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh there, but I'm going to give that one a D. Initial D. This is the offering from Kodansha. Kodansha importing a classic manga. Initial D. The story, I believe it came out in the early 90s originally. Anyway, it's about a food delivery driver who gets caught up in the street racing scene, about like 80 miles or so north of Tokyo, kind of a smaller town on a hill. It's actually pretty cool. There's also another comic in this. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's a hint at it. Cana of the Great Snow Sea. But you know what? Again, it's just a few pages. It gives you hardly anything. I don't think it even counted well as a tease. Sorry. I love Initial D. I want to read it because I've only read a little, but I'm going to give this Free Comic Book Day a D. Not great. Am I being too mean? I don't know. Hellboy. Hellboy actually gives us not just a short Hellboy story, there's also a short Stranger Things story. And you know what? Both of them were complete stories, not just a tease of what's coming. They were both good short stories, good art, good story. Mike Mignola himself wrote this Hellboy one. I'm going to give this one the first A. That's a good one. If you're looking for what to pick up, that's the first one I'd go, yeah, prioritize Hellboy. Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles, 40th anniversary. Big deal for Ninja Turtles. And they give us 2 stories in this as well. One, admittedly, is a bit of a tease for an upcoming book called Night Watcher, which seems to be one of the turtles in, sort of vigilante gear. And that one's sort of teasing the upcoming book. And then we also get a really lovely story about Master Splinter having a night off when his boys are like sort of sent out and he has some fun. Great artwork by Andy Kuhn. Guess what? I'm also going to give this one an A. Let's see, what's this? The Hellboy one was a fun little classic Mignola one-off. I liked that, the Hellboy one. Okay, good. I got the TMNT one. The comic seems too short. I think D is fair on an issue you got. Yeah, not really judging the full ongoing comic. I'm judging specifically what they gave us for Free Comic Book Day. But I appreciate all the stuff people are submitting and sharing their opinions. I didn't pick up the Popeye manga, but I would be curious to read it if I had been given it. All right. Here is Skybound's offering, the Energon Universe Special. Folks, three stories in this one: a Transformers story, a G.I. Joe story, and a Void Rivals story. The Void Rivals one is by Kirkman and De Felici, the regular team. The Energon Universe Transformers story is, and by the way, these are all original stories, not like a piece of an existing comic. The Transformers one is written by Daniel Warren Johnson, the regular writer. Artwork by Ryan Ottley. And the G.I. Joe one is interesting. It's by Joshua Williamson, the writer of the first 2 miniseries, and art by, what is it, Howard? Jason Howard. Jason Howard. Folks, this is an S. This is an S. It's not all the regular artists, but come on, Ryan Ottley on an original Transformers story.
we finally get some of the backstory on Megatron, who has been largely missing from the stories here. Really good. This is easily, in my opinion, the best one that I got. This is definitely an S tier book where you get 3 stories that actually add to the universe here. Add to the universe. Is it in canon? I believe it is. I believe it is. I'll have it in the news, Iron Shell. You agree with me. Owen also says it's an S. Good. Yeah, that's an S. Got it. Good. Just 3 more that I got to read. Flash Gordon. Mad Cave Studios has got the license for making comics based on Flash Gordon. Got the license from the comics syndicate that, what is it, King Features Syndicate. I would say, writer is Jeremy Adams, artist is Will Conrad. They do a lot of mainstream Marvel and DC stuff. It looks good. It gives you a bit of an adventure. It's a good thick amount. It's like a full story. I just didn't absolutely love it. So I'm going to I think I'm being fair by putting it at B. It seems like a decent story, but it didn't blow me away with something new. Almost done. Boom Studios released 3 short stories for the Worlds of James Tynion. One of them is the first few pages of the original Something is Killing the Children, some pages of The Woods, and some pages of Memetic. These are all things that have been printed before. So you know what? I'm sorry. I'm almost tempted to give it sort of a C, mid, because the stories are good, but this doesn't do much for me. It's not a complete short story. It's just pages of something that's already been published. Doesn't work for me. Not a good tease. Not a good tease. I'm going to give that a D. I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I do like James Tynion. But last one I got. Marvel was known as Atlas in the 50s. And just like the other publishers at the time, instead of superheroes, they were doing sci-fi, they were doing horror, they were doing humor. This is really interesting. This is going to now be released in omnibus formats by Fantagraphics, who tends to do very good formats. This gives you 6 stories from back then. 6. That's a good sampling. And they're all complete. They're short stories, but they're complete. You've got 3 with artist Joe Maneely, written by Stan Lee before he ever did superhero stuff. We've got a humor one. We've got a sci-fi one. They have some good twists. You've got a Basil Wolverton story in there. That's a good one. It's not quite S, but I'll put it at A. I'll put it at A. I would strongly. So these 4 that I've got up here are ones that I would recommend picking up. Energon Universe, if you can get it. Definitely Hellboy, Ninja Turtles, and stories from the Atlas Comics library. Those are the ones that I strongly recommend. The DC and Flash Gordon ones are not a waste of your time or anything like that. They're enjoyable enough. I mean, it is free. I would just put these 3 at D because it's only a few teaser pages and most of it has been printed before. So I don't think that's a great value. I'm almost tempted to put it on an S. It's towards the very top of A. The Atlas one is legit the best one of the lot. That's fair. Early Stanley is fun. Yep. He's trying. He's actually writing. The Fanta Atlas book was my favorite grab. The Conan one was good. The Conan issue was solid. That makes sense. That makes sense. Let's see. I got that one, but I think it is wildly hypocritical of Fantagraphics since Groth spent decades trashing Marvel, Stan Lee, and most Marvel artists not named Kirby. I could understand that, but it's still a company, not a person, right? Anyway, oh, look at that. Really? All the stores near you went through all of their free stuff. Come Wednesday when I go to get my comics, I'll have to see if that's the case with the stores that I go to. The Archie horror one was pretty bad. I didn't even hear anybody talking about that one. I did not get the Popeye one. But I thought that could be fun just to talk about something a little different. The Blood Hunt X-Men wasn't terrible, but you'd probably rank it D since it is preludes and teases for future stuff. It's okay to give me a setup for an upcoming story, but give me a little bit there. Give me a little meat. Give me a little meat. Okay, I'm glad that you enjoyed that one. That is fun. That is fun. My store was busy for hours. Wow. Randy, always good to have you here, buddy. I grabbed a few books with the boys, but haven't had a chance to read any. I don't approve, Randy. I do not approve. All right, let's get into the news of the week. Let's get into the news of the week. Bear with me as I add a slide here. Randy distracting me from moving forward at a good pace. You guys should be very mad at Randy. You guys should be very mad at him. Hey, look at that. It's my little tiny baby sister. Hey, Jean. Glad to have you here. 700 visitors. I don't know if that's good or bad. It all depends on the size of a story. I would have liked to have gotten the Mad book. That would have been nice. That would have been nice. Daughter got Snoopy and Spidey. It is nice that they've got some of those all ages books. They always have a bunch of those. It just isn't something that's going to speak to me as much, but I am glad that they put that stuff out there. That's a good idea. One of my local shops had an insane sale every free comic book day, so I was focused on that more than the free issues. A lot of stores will say that that's the day they get the most foot traffic, and so having the sales can really justify it for them. They can still make a lot of money that day. So that's really cool. Thank you. Just having some fun covering myself in free comic book day books for a silly little thumbnail. But let's get started on the news. So I'll start off with something relevant. It's almost like I planned this out. What a perfect segue. Yes, not the scooter, although someday if this show makes enough money, I promise to do a full show on a Segway scooter, but it will have to make a lot of money. Yeah. But yeah, the store that started a free comic book day, I'll explain that history, is closing. Let's talk about it. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's not as bad as it sounds. Whoa, somebody has some money. Well, maybe you guys could spend a second hitting the like button. That helps this channel. All right. What do we got here? So, Free Comic Book Day was originally conceived back in 2001 by Joe Field. Now, he's a comic book retailer. He owns Flying Colors Comics in the greater Bay Area, the San Francisco, San Jose, Sacramento sort of area. And he wrote, he also, I think, helps put on WonderCon. Anyway, so yeah, he thought of this idea. He saw a line at the store next to his store for Baskin-Robbins free scoop night. And he was like, why don't we do that in comics? He proposed that in an industry retailer magazine, got a lot of great feedback. And so in 2002, Free Comic Book Day started with 4 books. There was one by Marvel, one by DC, one by Dark Horse. Forget who the 4th one was. Probably Archie, if I had to guess, but it's hard to remember. Anyway, yeah, and it was tied in to, they put it in May, the first Saturday of May, because the then new Spider-Man movie was coming out. And ever since then, there has always been, in May, a live action superhero movie coming out. Helps tie it in. This is the first May that didn't happen. There was not a superhero movie. But anyway, so Joe Field announced that this is going to be the final Free Comic Book Day at their current location because their lease is up in January. They're the owner of the land or whatever isn't renewing it, but the store isn't going out of business. He said that they're going to just end up getting another location in the same city, which I think is called Carson, California, if I'm remembering right. So anyway, it just means that next May it'll be at a new location. But I also wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to Joe Field, since we just had Free Comic Book Day. Sounds like a bunch of you got to enjoy it. You know what? Tit Goblin has it right. It wasn't Archie. It was not even Image. It was Top Cow. I just remembered that. Top Cow released some sort of a Witchblade book, I think, back in 2002. So yeah. Baskin-Robbins' secret connection to Marvel outside of MCU. Exactly. It's not just Ant-Man working there. It also helped inspire Free Comic Book Day. Good marketing idea. Good marketing idea. Moving on, we've got other news. Marvel continues to announce a ton of upcoming X-Men books. These are the teasers that they've released, so you can start getting excited looking at that. And I've got a few details here. So 2 more X-Men books. X-Factor and Wolverine, both coming out in the end of the summer. And also, Marvel said that they'd have more details about these books, like the creative team and the specific direction, later this week. We will see what happens. Tomb Raider. So it was Top Cow. It was for Tomb Raider. Got it. Thank you. What else do we have to say about these? Oh, sort of related note, there was an X-Men Free Comic Book Day story. And I guess that was by Gail Simone and David Marquez. And it established that in the new, like, ongoing X-Men continuity, the X-Mansion hasn't been used for a long time. The mutants have all been living on Krakoa. It has been repurposed. It is now known as Grey Malkin Prison, and it is a mutant jail. Yes, Razorback, whose mutant ability is he can drive anything, but he also wears a gigantic Warthog Razorback suit. Makes sense. Comics. I had a great Free Comic Book Day. Went 5 comic shops with pals. That does sound like a nice Free Comic Book Day. I love it. I love it. So, what else? The prison is led by 2 new villains, Dr. Karina Ellis and her associate Philip. Now, Ellis seems to be human, but Philip is a mutant telepath. He's got pale skin, walking crutches. So yeah, they're running this prison. There's a mysterious inmate X in there. And then for these upcoming books for X Factor, this is interesting. They say officially sanctioned to protect a world that, and then hates and fears is crossed out, loves and adores them. The second iteration of X Factor was a government-run team. Val Cooper headed it up and hired Havoc to be the leader. There were characters like Strong Guy and I think Wolfsbane, Multiple Man, Quicksilver, Polaris, if I'm remembering it all right. So maybe it's something like that, where this is like a government-run mutant team. So they've got marketing behind them. Although that's really close to, say, X-Statics. And then for Wolverine, it's saying that, you know, the fight always finds him. It's in his bones. Sounds like people are going for his adamantium. But that's just me guessing based on their teaser. Who knows? X-Factor could be more like X-Statics. We'll know more later this week. Probably by the next show, we'll know the creative teams, and we'll see if it's fun. As long as we're talking about the X-Men, you can now rent the X-Mansion. This is an actual photo of a place that you can rent. Let me explain. You probably came across this. I don't know. Airbnb. They've got this new program called Icons. Great. Love promoting big business. It's my favorite thing, especially when they don't give me any sponsorship money. Love talking about that. That's just my thing. Happy to get into it. Airbnb has unveiled Icons. Those are going to be, a rental experience that are based on pop culture. They're going to have 11 different experiences. The X-Men is like the one that's relevant to us because it's comic book related. It's in Newcastle, New York. It can house up to 8 guests at a time. It has 4 bedrooms, 5 beds, 2.5 baths. Maybe that's not quite a mansion, but it's definitely a big house. Inside, also, if you want to do this, you have to request the reservation by May 13th. So that's on the Airbnb site. that just means you've got less than a week, or yeah, you've got about a week right now. Yeah, 4 rooms. Oh, look at that. People are wondering about the danger room, huh? Give me a sec. I've got some good details for you folks. $97 per guest per night. I think that sounds completely reasonable for any sort of a rental, especially if it's an experience. It's not like it's cheap, but I don't think that's exorbitant. They've got bedrooms based on Jubilee's room, Beast's room, Wolverine's. They've got a danger room, folks. Let me show you some more. I want to show you something. Let me take this off for a second, and I'm going to add something. Beep, 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 beep. Share screen. There we go. These are actual photos of the actual place. This is not artwork or AI or anything. What they've done is they've given like a cell shaded or animated look to all sorts of they've given it accents so that it all looks like the animated series style, but it is a real physical place. You've got, like, Jubilee's bedroom here, decked out in all sorts of interesting detail. There's an outside shot. Maybe not quite as big as the real X Mansion, but still pretty big. And I love this Sentinel head. That's fun. Let's see. Just all sorts of little details. Oh, this is Wolverine's bedroom. You got, like, the swords and the bonsai tree, referring to his Japanese past. His helmet is in there. Cool. The hallway, pretty iconic. Decent representation. Let's see what else. Animated series artwork all over the place. Good. So it's very much based on the cartoon. But you know what? X-Men 97's been a pretty great cartoon. I just thought I'd show you guys some of the... Oh, yeah, Jubilee's room actually has the X-Men game. So that might be a reason to want to rent that one specifically. That would be fun. Yeah, these are all actual photos of the room. So everything you're seeing inside is the photo in the room. You must be referring to the iconic one of Wolverine, like, touching a photo. I don't think that's in. Yes, actually, Wolverine's room does have a Jean Grey picture in it. I'll show you. Let's see. We got some more here. But, sorry, this is a good example of, like, how they've doctored up the stuff that's there to, like, look like it's both from the late 90s as well as animated. There's some attention to detail. I appreciate that. What do we have after Jubilee's room? Come on. Okay, you got Professor X's room with some good props here and there. His original team, in a photo. All sorts of books that are relevant to genetics. That's fun. A letter from President Kelly. That was Magneto and Charles Xavier in younger years that was in there. Look at this. This isn't the full danger room. This is their war room. See, that's a real room that you can sit in. You've got, like, Cerebro there. That's kind of fun. Let's see. It looks weird, especially when it comes to spacing and her room's work. It looks like props. It is props. I mean, it's based on a cartoon. I don't know what else they could necessarily do. It's not based on the live action stuff, Which room is this? Oh, that's Wolverine's still. That's Wolverine's. Yeah, see, there's some funny details. Look, claw marks on the alarm clock. Picture of Jean. Yeah, she's got Cyclops, but some accidental clawing around the edges of the room. Where's Beast's room? I like Beast's room. Oh, yeah, there it is. Sorry. Beast has, like, all those sort of fake beakers full of chemicals because he's a scientist. Books by him, as well as other books that he'd be reading. The Low Iron Diet Cookbook, Les Miserables, Genomes. That's pretty good stuff. I don't know. Do you folks think that you'd want to spend $97 on this? Here's sort of like a ready room that just has, like, lockers and stuff with props. I think if you're a big X-Men fan and you're in New York, yeah, it might be fun to spend $97 to be there for the night. I don't know that it's something I would travel for. I don't think it quite gives you anything that unique. You know, it isn't telling you that you're going to get some sort of a special meal or anything along those lines. Oh, this is just sort of like a dormitory room. One of the 4 rooms is just a dormitory. So that's why it's got like an odd number of beds. It's got twin beds here, but I like the picture of Dazzler. Yes, it would be nice if Cerebro worked. It's kind of cool. I think that that's a really good description of what we're looking at. It's kind of cool. And here is the actual, this isn't like concept art. This is literally the danger room that you can go into. This is real. So that's kind of fun. You know, what would you do? You'd spend a night, you'd take some photos for your Instagram, and you've got a story for your friends that also read comics. Other people would be like, I don't get it. I like that. I like that Sentinel head. So anyway, just thought that would be fun to look at for a little bit. They do have a danger room. Yes, you actually sleep in those rooms. Just to be clear, you get to sleep in those rooms. They don't have other rooms on top of that. Those are the rooms that you sleep in, like Wolverine's room or Jubilee's room, something like that. It's unique. It's unique. Again, you have to sign up to try to book it before May 13th on the Airbnb site. What's the next piece of news that I need to add? Excuse me. Add this. Apparently, Marvel now is approving new series up to 10 issues at a time. Let me go into that. There we go. So Marvel president Dan Buckley, he's president of the comics division. He was interviewed by ICV2 this past week. He spoke about Marvel looking to do less one-shots and short-term books. I had 2 quotes that I thought were relevant. One, we've heard from retailers that the shortening up of series with more and more one-shots, more and more miniseries, and fewer longer ongoing series makes it harder to maintain the habit of collecting. Marvel is definitely in that role. That makes sense to me because I've been hearing from a lot of people that they would prefer ongoing series, that there's like, even when there's really cool ideas, even outside of superheroes, there's just too many miniseries and stuff, and people want to get into reading long form serialized content. Comics can do that well. Comics can do that well. Let's see. Another quote that Dan Buckley had. I think the days of having a 500 issue run is probably a reach, but we are looking at having less limited series and more ongoing with all our characters. I'm not going to say there won't be limited series, but I am at the moment approving some series for 10 issues at a time, not 4 or 5. Okay, well, we'll see. Exactly. I wonder what that means for like future events. That's a great point. Hold on. Victor doesn't like, let me look more closely. Well, yeah, that is kind of odd, isn't it? That is kind of odd rendering. Anyway, I don't know what to make of it. Let's talk briefly about potential MCU returns as well as mystery castings. And this is a photo by somebody. Let me talk about that. Actor Finn Jones, the guy that played Iron Fist. That wasn't a beloved show compared to the other Defenders shows that came out on Netflix. But I will argue it also wasn't as bad as people say. I didn't think it was like, you know, Secret Invasion type bad. And I thought season 2 was more entertaining than season 1. I think that its weakest point was not even casting. It's that they needed to give that show more time to choreograph really good martial arts fights. That's what your selling point is on an Iron Fist show. And by all accounts, that was the one show that they sort of rushed into production, even though that they planned all along on doing Iron Fist. They got it rolling pretty late in the game. Anyway, actor Finn Jones posted this to his Instagram stories recently. He was packing for a trip, and he's obviously prominently featured the final issue of Power Man and Iron Fist. So it feels like he's trying to hint that he's coming back. I guess that's possible because Daredevil is definitely bringing back, you know, other characters from his show, Kingpin and Vanessa Fisk, Punisher, Foggy Nelson, Karen Page. There might be a cameo by Jessica Jones. We're not sure yet, but we'll see. We'll see. I feel like this could just as easily, to be clear, this could just as easily be Finn Jones trying to drum up interest in coming back. Let's be clear, but we'll see. On a somewhat related note to MCU casting, at the CCXP Mexico convention this past week, CCXP, if you don't know, is a huge comic convention, like one of the biggest comic conventions of the year. It takes place in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in like December, I want to say. But anyway, they've got a spin-off one in Mexico. And actor Giancarlo Esposito was there, as he should be, right? What is Giancarlo Esposito not in? Well, he hasn't been in the MCU yet, but he revealed that he will appear in an MCU role, not as Professor X. A lot of people had fan cast him as a potential Professor X. He said that's not his role. He's saying that news about what his role will drop sooner rather than later, and that it's better than you can imagine. Let me just throw that out to the group. Giancarlo Esposito, probably at this point best known as, Gus Fring on Breaking Bad, I would argue. He's done a lot of stuff over the years, but I think that's pretty iconic role. He was also the bad guy on The Mandalorian for the first 3 seasons. He does a good job, I think, at playing like a nuanced, meticulous type of villain. As Forge, as Wolverine, you guys are good. What is it? I think my friend Sal from Comic Pop posted about this on Twitter, and he said he thought that it would be Doctor Doom. And I said, well, he doesn't have an Eastern European vibe. And Sal justifiably pointed out, well, who says Doctor Doom and Latveria has to be Eastern European in the MCU? And I go, oh, maybe that is fair. I guess you could put Latveria somewhere else in the world, and that wouldn't really be a big deal. But I do think he's too old, to be honest. I think he's too old for that specific role, because we know who has been cast in the Fantastic Four, and Doctor Doom is supposed to be the same age. He's supposed to be a contemporary. So I don't think Doctor Doom makes sense. Could they cast him as a new variant of Kang? They could. Could he play some other villain? I don't know, Magneto or something? Nah, Magneto wouldn't really make sense, because I think you want to keep his Jewish history with World War II no matter what. Yeah, that's fair. He's of mixed descent. Okay, somebody here does think Kang is a Razorback. I don't know. I feel like they'd want him as a villain, but I don't know who it would be. Thanks for jumping in. Hey, it's Bronze Age Nerd. Christopher from Bronze Age Nerd. Great channel, folks. Does more looking at like some of the collecting aspects and the current news on comic books. So if you like a show like this where I talk about news, you might like Bronze Age Nerd. He's a nice guy. Thanks for dropping in. The Trapster. You better not. That role is going to me. You're going to see me get so mad when somebody is inevitably cast as Trapster. As Galactus, that's not a bad idea. Like, he could have a voice role. Yeah. No, he's not Paste Pot Pete. How dare you? How dare you? We'll see. I don't know. The other thing, I thought I had another bit of a quote, but I guess I don't. So I'm going to go from the MCU to the DCU. This was shared this morning. Look at that. What do we have here? Let's break that down. Let's analyze every pixel. That's what this show is about. Over on this pixel, this reflection indicates that it's being reflected the energy off of a Big Boy Burger, meaning that the iconic fast food franchise from DC Comics is making an appearance. I'm sorry, I stuttered that one out. So this morning, writer-director James Gunn posted this to Threads. This is the first official photo of actor David Corenswet in costume, Superman. And I'll be honest, I think it looks quite good. I've got a few things to say. Superman has two things that I like. He's got his S curl, which I never understood why they didn't like let Henry Cavill have that sort of aspect. And he is wearing red trunks. It's not easy to see, but just to be clear, he does have red trunks. Now, on the other hand, there's a bit of texture here. There's the collar that's more of the new 52 design. So that's some concessions to modern, interpretations. Obviously, the S is based more on the Kingdom Come, or maybe arguably even one of the original Superman S shields. It's not quite what we want to see. And if it looks a little dark to you when you look at it up close, like it looks like basically he's been in battle. There's some burned scorch marks along here. This is not, I don't think, a still from the movie, folks. This is like a photo that was taken on set. So it's more interpretive. Okay. But look at this in the background. Obviously, there's something shooting a big ball of energy here, right? What is that? What is that? I'll be honest. Like, some people have disagreed with me because I've said since this morning, I think that that's Solaris, the Tyrant Sun. That is a villain from Superman comics, originally debuted, I believe, in DC 1 million, but was used in All-Star Superman. It was an important plot point of All-Star Superman, and we do know that James Gunn was planning on using some elements of All-Star Superman by Morrison and Quitely. I think that that's a movie version of Solaris. I don't know. You tell me if you think that it doesn't look exactly like it, but I mean, it's a ball that looks like it's got like an eye that's shooting a laser. That's what I see. It is a bit of a deep pull. It is it's just a bird. It might be a plane. Someone else also thinks that could be it. I think that Solaris is an interesting idea, so that you have a little bit more room to develop Superman and his supporting cast, and Solaris works more as a plot point rather than another character you'd have to develop. But who knows? Yes, of course. We want to see David Cornsweet grow a mustache and then have it digitally sort of removed. Sort of. Not really. Emerald Eye. Weather balloon. Who knows? Maybe we will get electric blue. I think it's Solaris, but that's just me. You never know. Anyway, I do think it's overall a nice costume. I think it definitely looks like Superman. I'd love to see it in daylight without the burn scorch marks. I hope that this is a fairly bright blue. It might be. I can't quite tell. You heard Brainiac? It could be Brainiac's ship. That's certainly an easy thing that they could go with. Yeah, that would make sense. But I feel like that Solaris. I'm gonna just roll the dice. That's where I'm putting my chips. I think that it's Solaris. Folks, is DC Comics finally releasing the Jose Luis Garcia Lopez style guide for DC Comics? It looks like that may just be the case from everything we are seeing here. Doc Shaner, great artist, writer, posted this on Twitter yesterday. He basically said he got some copies of comics. This was an ad on the back of the upcoming issue of Green Lantern. Look at that. I mean, in no uncertain terms does it specifically say the 1982 DC Comics style guide, reproduced from a rare original copy as a 1-to-1 hardcover book, August 2024. Whoa, I love Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I've made an episode about him. I talk about this art book. If you don't know it, that's a Comic Tropes episode you can watch. Yeah, this is just recapping what I was just saying. Previously, this guide had only been made available to official licensees with DC Comics. It was this huge book they had of all their characters, I think even some locations, so that it remained consistent that, you know, if the licensee for Underoos or Superman Popsicles or something needed to create some artwork for it, they had a reference for what the costume and the face and everything should look like before it gets approved. Like, so everybody's always wanted to see this because there are pages that have been uploaded digitally. Garcia Lopez is a very well respected and beloved artist. He just made every character look fantastic. And so people have always wanted to like actually have this book, and it looks like it's actually happening. DC didn't officially announce this or anything, but you know, if they didn't want it out there, they shouldn't have like included it in the comp copies that they send to artists. The guide that launched 1 million Underoos. Probably accurate, actually. Probably accurate. You need it. Good. Good. Ah, what a treat that would be to get to see JLGL. That would be so nice. So nice. Yeah. Right. Right. Before there was MeUndies, there was Underoos. I'm pretty sure I did have Underoos when I was a very little kid. I'm pretty sure I did. I don't remember whose. Probably Spider-Man, but I don't know. And it's exciting to think about. We will undoubtedly hear more as long as this is accurate, and I see no reason why it wouldn't be. Again, they're saying August, so we'll probably be hearing some news very soon. The Hellboy movie had a bit of drama this week with a news story that broke and then was quickly refuted. So let me sort of lay out that story as briefly as I can. There is a third interpretation of Hellboy as a live-action movie coming. It's based on The Crooked Man, which was a great Hellboy story, I will say. So this week, Jonathan Younger, he's the president of Millennium Films. He was on a panel at the 74th Berlin International Film Festival. So the news was being translated back and forth to German and then back to English for some of these panels. Anyway, he was discussing the upcoming Hellboy, the Crooked Man movie, and he has a quote that went viral among comic book nerds like me. And he says, "I was able to make 3,000 creature designs in an hour." He said that he was using AI to do this. "So now I can start to cherry pick and edit those and send it to visual effects." A lot of people not a big fan of hearing about that, including when this broke. Like Mike Mignola like posted and he was like, "I didn't know about this. I am not happy." But it very quickly did get cleared up. Or hopefully did. We'll see. The director of the film, Brian Taylor, he released to Twitter this statement. It said in part, "To be clear, there is exactly 0 AI used on Hellboy, the Crooked Man. Both characters, Hellboy and the Crooked Man, were created and shot 100% gloriously practical, as the movie gods intended, with no CGI enhancement, and look amazing." So basically, Taylor said that the original quote here was a misquote, that it had nothing to do with Hellboy, and that Younger was actually speaking about some other movie they're working on called The Offering, which I guess is using AI to come up with creature designs. Pretty stinky. But from what we can hear, I just wanted to sort of tell the story. And, you know, I have no reason not to believe Brian Taylor, especially when you consider like that this is like a lower budgeted Hellboy movie. They probably are trying to do as much as possible in camera as compared to using CGI. There will be CGI, but I think there'll be less than the last 2 iterations. So, probably expense. You could do it animated, but I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be something you could really do on a budget that would justify it. So we'll see. We'll see. Liefeld's Evangeline, that's here. This character is Glory, but I mean, look at this great picture. That's a natural woman's body. That's how they go. Yeah, so there's a movie based on this Liefeld character, and it's moving forward. It made some progress. We talked about this on the show somewhat recently. Olivia Wilde and Margot Robbie, they've been looking for a studio to finance a film based on the Rob Liefeld character. This week, Warner Brothers officially picked it up. Okay. The film has also added Tony McNamara. He wrote Poor Things recently, among other things. He's going to script the film. Wilde is attached to direct, and then Robbie will potentially star, subject to the script. So I guess she wants to make sure that the script is something she likes before she commits, but she's at least producing it right now. And if you don't know, Evangeline is about a fallen angel who fights demons and sometimes has no waist, apparently. I don't know quite what was going on there. Let's see, like that's about like 1.5 times as thick as her arm. That sounds right. That sounds right. Let's see. Crazy to You for 2 reasons. That Rob Liefeld film adaptation is seemingly going forward and that so much talent is attached to it. You know, as far as just sort of the big idea, it feels like I get it. Look, Liefeld ends up in the news because he has big bombastic ideas. And if you just sort of break that down to the base idea and start fresh, maybe it works. Who knows? Hello, Tari. Nice to jump in. Let's see. He does seem to have some thin skin. Liefeld does not seem to react well to even his most ardent fans saying anything critical. So he probably doesn't like me, I guess. Well, he said as much, but he doesn't. He also, I don't think, really knows who I am because I've stopped him at conventions and taken pictures with him before. That I liked Liefeld when I was a kid. My only criticism is that he doesn't really seem to work to evolve his art, but at the same time, what would the motivation be when he does sell? He sells, and I'd be foolish to deny facts. His work sells. There's a 2000 AD comic. That's a British publisher. If you don't know, probably a lot of you do, but they do Judge Dredd. They do Rogue Trooper. They do a bunch of cool stuff. They've got a series that was written by John Wagner, Button Man, and it looks like it's getting developed into a TV series. Essentially, Deadline broke this news that director David Leitch and his production company picked up the rights to this John Wagner comic. And the first storyline was called The Killing Game. So I think that's what they might be calling the show, but we'll see. If you don't know Leitch, he was the co-director of the first John Wick, a stuntman that went on to become a director. He directed Deadpool 2. He directed Atomic Blonde. Both of those are comic book movies. He just did The Fall Guy. You know what? It was actually funnier than I expected it to be. It was decent. So David Leitch is his company is developing this comic. Develop it into a TV series. Here's the premise. So the book follows Harry Exton. He was a former soldier, and then he was a mercenary, and then he retires back to England, and he enters this sort of deadly ongoing game, where 2 guys have to hunt each other. They get arranged by mysterious backers known as the Voices, disembodied voices on the other end of a telephone telling you where to go, who to meet, and a player can either become very rich or very dead very quickly. So, could be cool. Yeah, I didn't want to throw him under the bus for that one. Now, Bullet Train's entertaining, but I didn't think it was that great. It's okay. It's okay. I think Deadpool 2 and Atomic Blonde and Fall Guy were all pretty good. Oh, and I mean, John Wick, of course, was. Button Man is excellent. Love it all. 2000 AD rules. Sounds like Steve is a fan. Good. Maybe a little bit of Running Man in there, maybe. More the movie than, of course, the original novella, but yeah, maybe. Thank you, Joshua. Let's see. Liefeld was perfect for his time. If he started today, would he survive on the merit of his art and his inherent self-promotion? I don't think the self-promotion is a bad feature, to be honest. I think that everybody working in comics needs a bit of that, needs a bit of marketing savvy. Would he survive today? I don't know. His art was newer at the time. He isn't really offering something that other artists don't show a bit of now. No, I don't think he'd be as popular if he debuted now, but it depends. He's still got big ideas, so maybe he'd work well as like a publisher or a writer or something, doing the occasional cover. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Also interesting, the other bits of news that I have. Conan and Red Sonja, the rights holders of both of those properties, have been cracking down on people trying to do their own versions. Let me go into Conan first. John Allison. He's done stuff like Bad Machinery, Giant Days. He recently started a webcomic based on Conan because it is in the public domain in the UK. However, he was doing it as a webcomic, and webcomics are viewed worldwide, not just in England. That's the wrinkle there. Here is a quote from John Allison. Following a cease and desist notice filed on behalf of Conan Properties International, LLC, I have taken down my Conan and the Blood Egg comic. While to the best of my understanding, Conan the Barbarian is in the public domain in the UK, where I live and work, I do not have the time and energy to contest this. I made this story for my own and your amusement, and it has, I think understandably, ceased to be amusing. I apologize for the break in updates and that you won't get to see the remaining half of the story. I was 10 pages of 66 off finishing drawing it. In retrospect, my mistake was starting to draw it in the first place. If he had printed it as like a published book that he was only selling, say, at like UK conventions, he probably would have been okay. I know. Conan. I know. Conan we're talking right now. Conan. So I think, the problem arose when he tried to do it as a web comic. I suspect that's how this company went after him. Maybe you can fight it. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. It's too bad. Because, talented creator, would have been cool. Obviously, yeah, he did like over 50 pages of it. It's a shame. Maybe, but I think that you could probably get away with the look. Yes, you're right. It's how he looks in Marvel, but it's not like it's also that different when you look at, say, the interpretation by Frank Frazetta for the book covers or something like that. Conan is a barbarian, and he doesn't have a lot of distinctive, sort of like scars or like horns on his head or anything, so I think you're okay. Let me talk about the second part of it with Red Sonja. So here's Blue Sonja. What happened there? This is separate, but Ben Dunn, Antarctic Press, famous for things like, what is it? The Ninja High School, for instance, things like that. He had announced a book called Blue Sonja, but he also got a cease and desist letter, this time from the owners of Red Sonja, which is Red Sonja LLC. Yeah, even though, anyway, yes, they were both in the Marvel Comics. They are owned these days by different companies. They told him, hey, that infringes too closely on the character. And I mean, to be fair, if all you're doing is changing the hair color from this and it's still pronounced the same, they might have a point. I don't know if this would count as parody because I haven't seen the execution. There's a chance that this would be fair. Either way, Dunn said that he's just going to revise his idea and call it Kendra Sellsword. I'm sure he'd be protected at that point. How could he not be? So yes, I think you can do that. I think you're right. The first Conan story, The Phoenix on the Sword, enters public domain in 2028 in the US. So, yeah, 4 more years, and you'll probably start seeing a lot more Conan stuff. We'll see. There's a lot of things that are going to be entering the public domain that we actually know about. It used to be way more rare for, something like Sherlock Holmes or Wizard of Oz to enter the public domain because not everything stood the test of time. But as media evolved, books were kept in print and adapted into film and radio and comic strips. So it was kept in the public eye longer. And so we're getting to a point where a lot of stuff that we still recognize and is still used is going to enter the public domain. Did you guys see this? I was surprised to come across this, but I hunt for news items. I hunt for them, and I'll tell you something. Pretty damn good hunter. Yes, it seems unnecessary that I put on a bow and arrow and carry a quiver about when I'm hunting for comic book news, because I do look on my phone. Why would I need those things? Why do I put a knife or a bandolier on me? I don't know. That's just how I know how to hunt. Okay? And I really don't want you guys judging me. So back off. All right. Lady Death. Lady Death hit its Kickstarter goal to get a video game. Coffin Comics has announced that Lady Death Demonicron, I hope I pronounced that right, a canonical beat-em-up game set in the Lady Death universe, has been funded on Kickstarter and is, currently in development for PC via Steam, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and the Nintendo Switch, courtesy of developer Art of Play Games. Anybody here a Humongatron fan of Lady Death and dreamt of being able to use their thumbs to make her punch? Is that anybody's dream out here? The dream of the 90s is alive on Weekly Spinner Rack. Chris scrolls the internet with a machete, frantically chugging bootleg dew. Have you been spying on me? Are you hunting me? Oh my God. The hunter becomes the hunted. Well, it happens. Nope. Yes. Great. Sounds pretty cool. Could be if they price it well. I don't know. I just got a kick out of that Lady Death getting a video game on the Nintendo Switch just doesn't feel right. But okay. I've got more indie news. I want to talk about a bunch of indie stuff. Dynamite nabbed the Puppet Master license. Puppet Master. I think that I'm not even kidding, at least 13 Puppet Master movies, and then a couple crossover ones where they appeared too. I think that there's at least something like that, which is bonkers. And yet, I bet a bunch of you have never seen a Puppet Master movie, but I have. That's probably the kind of thing that maybe someday Jim and I will talk about on Trash Movie Bonanza. So if you like trashy movies on this channel, what do we have right now? Jim and I, within the last week, uploaded a new one. We look at comet movies. Trashy sort of comet movies, and we are doing a comic book theme next time. So anyway, Puppet Master. Dynamite Entertainment has announced a new licensing partnership with Full Moon Features. They're the people that produce these movies, to produce collectibles and other projects. I assume other projects would potentially include comic books. I hope, because I want to read a Puppet Master comic, to be honest. Featuring the legendary Puppet Master series of films in celebration of the franchise's 35th anniversary. That makes me feel old. I remember when that was new. Heck yes, Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys. I think, was there also a Puppet Master versus Doll Man? I think that they did a crossover with that. Anyway. I think that they crossed over. The Puppet Master series kicked off back in '89 with its eponymous first entry. Anthropomorphic puppets animated by an ancient Egyptian spell wreak havoc, equipped with dangerous devices and weapons, and are out to threaten people or even fight against other puppets. Yes, there were sometimes two factions of puppets. The film is considered one of the key cult hits of the home video and rental era. Its massive success, can you tell that I copied this from the press release? Its massive success and following led to 10 sequels. 10 sequels, okay, so we're up to 11. A reboot, 12 spin-offs, and crossovers. I don't know what they mean by spin-offs. What spin-offs did they have? I liked the first maybe 3 Puppet Masters. Oh, we do not need an Evil Bong comic. We don't need that. Puppet Master master of puppets. There you go. Puppet Master versus the Muppets. I'm going to give it to the Muppets there. I'm going to give it to the Muppets. No, not Alicia Masters' evil stepfather. We're talking about the Puppet Master. And by the way, there are different puppet masters depending on who controls these toys. But they have some, the first few do have some pretty good stop motion animation effects. I like that. When there's a press release, I think you are encouraged to copy press releases. That's not like somebody else's, like that's what a press release is. It's for you to just grab. So not plagiarism, not plagiarism. I just copied the part of the press release here. I should have put it in quotes is what I should have done. Anyway. Folks, this is a little more of a deep pull, but it's a comic that I absolutely adore, so I wanted to talk about it because it was in the news. There's going to be a new Cursed Pirate Girl comic. This one, Melodious Mutiny. So, if you don't know, Cursed Pirate Girl, it's a black and white comic by a guy named Jeremy Bastian. He writes and draws it. It's a fairy tale of sorts, with this girl searching for her father, who she knows to be a pirate captain. And she encounters all sorts of supernatural characters, mostly beneath the sea. It's almost like a Wizard of Oz type of story. It's all ages. It's fantastic. It is just amazing. Just amazing. So anyway, it's going to get a new collection. So mostly previously printed material, but I bet a bunch of you don't have this or haven't read it. So that's why I want to put it on people's radar. Originally, it was self-published for 3 issues, starting in 2009. Boom began releasing it in collected form in 2013. They had a new issue last January that was really cool. It's all ages. It's whimsical. It's funny. The artwork is so intricate. It does not come out on any sort of a regular schedule. And like I say, it's been re-released in various collected forms. But here's the thing. Even when it gets collected, there's usually a few new pages each time. So you can't go wrong buying any of it. It's pretty great. Oh, I would watch Puppet Master versus Wishmaster, but I'll tell you, I'm going to give it to Wishmaster there. Is that your wish? Yeah, I could see a little bit of Pippi Longstocking in the character, a little bit. It's a great title, folks. If you ever come across it in a comic shore, I don't even know what to riff on there. That was just me stuttering. Completely unacceptable. I'll have some coffee to get the brain working faster again. But if you come across it at, like, say, a Comic-Con or something, Cursed Pirate Girl is incredible. Just incredible. Unfortunately, there was a comic shop that was broken into, and it was actually robbed twice within 3 days. We're going to talk about that briefly, just in case it leads to an arrest. World's Best Comics and Toys is a comic shop in the greater Sacramento, California area, and it was robbed by the same person twice in the past week. Security cameras show that the same guy broke in on April 29th and then again on May 2nd by smashing the front window, and he stole both times Transformers and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So this guy's got a specific interest. Yeah, that is... If you go to jail for stealing Yu-Gi-Oh cards, you can count on not being at the top of the food chain of criminals. You are not going to do well in prison if you go to jail for stealing Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The store owner had to put up a security gate. This apparently is new. That stinks. But the thief is both on camera and he cut himself on the glass from where he smashed the front door, and he left blood at the crime scene. So if they catch him, they've got some pretty good forensic evidence. Yes, and this is the part where this show is going to translate to more of a true crime drama. And I'm going to deepen my voice. There were plenty of clues left that day at World's Best Comics and Toys, none more relevant than the alleged perpetrator's blood. But this was no ordinary blood. It was irradiated gamma blood. I don't know. Yeah, this is not somebody just stealing for the money, I don't think. This is somebody who just wanted something and couldn't afford it, I think. But anyway. Enhanced Screen Grid 9. Folks, that is what we professionally call a Blade Runner reference. Cue David Caruso. Looks like this crime just got a whole lot more comical. It was the best I could come up with on short notice. Thank you. Oh, sorry to hear that your store's dealing with that and that they didn't take any blood samples. I mean, okay, I don't see why you wouldn't, but okay. Anyway. I'm not a cop. I don't know. Last piece of news. Ninja Turtles teased a new direction this week. They released some pages. So IDW released some preview pages of the upcoming Raphael issue, written by Jason Aaron. This particular story is written by Joelle Jones, and it reveals that Raphael is somehow in prison. We don't know how that happened yet. It's like some time has jumped forward a little bit since issue 150. We're not rebooting everything, but we're getting a fresh start to Ninja Turtles. That's going to start in July, and then they're going to have like one-shot issues. First of, yes, Raphael. Then they're going to have Raphael Albuquerque on a Michelangelo issue, Cliff Chang drawing Leonardo, and Chris Burnham handling Donatello before it then starts as Ninja Turtles again. Jason Aaron, the writer, said, quote, "When this new series begins, the Turtles have gone their separate ways and ended up in some surprising places." Yeah, I would call prison surprising. First up is Raphael, the one mutant inmate in a prison full of killers, as brought to gorgeously gritty life by Joelle. Looks interesting to me. I'm going to try it. I'm going to definitely give Ninja Turtles another try. I think that could be fun. Let's talk about the comics that came out this week. Yes? Does that sound good? Wait, what? Everybody's mad at Joelle Jones for some reason, but she can really draw. I'm not aware of the drama behind that. Joelle is a great artist. I don't know about the drama. I haven't heard anything. Oh, well, I guess that is justifiable. If your pizza's late, yeah, that is a good reason to kill someone. If your pizza's late, yeah. You can go your own way. Go your own way. Was that Fleetwood Mac? I don't know. Looky. We've got bookies. I'm going to talk about a few comics that I read this week. Just a few. I'm not going to talk about every single one. Blood Hunt came out. And if you were lucky enough, you got Blood Hunt with teeth. This is a keeper. This is something you can count on me having 10 years from now. I'm going to be doing this show in a wheelchair in a nursing home, but I will still have my Blood Hunt teeth. All right. So I got to be careful because, folks, they released Blood Hunt in two versions. Blood Hunt is Marvel's newest event. I'll tell you something. I took a chance on it because the idea of vampires versus superheroes sounded fun. But I had tried an issue of the DC versus vampires, and it didn't work for me. Blood Hunt kind of does. And yeah, so they released two versions of this. They've got like a regular version, and then they have this polybagged version because there's about 3 pages that they put gorier artwork in. It's a gimmick. I got the gory version because I'm a pervert. I don't know what I'm doing there. Blood Hunt. I liked it. It starts with a cool premise. and it's got a good crew. Jed MacKay has been writing The Avengers. He's been writing Moon Knight. And there's one other book that he's been writing, and I forget which that is. But this rolls in The Avengers, Spider-Man, Moon Knight, and Blade for a vampire story. Okay? Jed MacKay's been writing a bunch of this stuff, so he's set up a lot of elements. And I haven't read all that stuff, but I can tell jumping into this that it's been established and I can just roll with it. So I like that as compared to like having to set it all up in this issue. It's building on some continuity that has been established in terms of what vampires have been doing in Marvel Comics and what's been happening with characters like Blade and Doctor Strange. Okay? But we start off, and by the way, this artwork by Pepe Larraz, one of the best out there right now. I will say that. Like, this is really organic, detailed, but energetic artwork. And what's happening here is all these various superheroes and super villains that have access. This is also just part of Marvel's history. There's a bunch of different characters like Cloak from Cloak and Dagger, or Blackout, the Shroud, Dark Star. Characters that have this ability to tap into a dimension full of dark energy, okay? Sometimes they can teleport through it. Sometimes they can use it as like, just blasting energy. Doesn't really matter. What matters is somebody has caused all these different superheroes and supervillains that have been established to have access to this energy source to sort of go out of control, and just the energy is just pouring out of them. They've been turned into portals, and the energy just goes into the sky and blacks out the sun. It's like, if you go far enough north, into like deep Canada or something, or deep Alaska, there are days where you get like 30 days of night. They turned it into a vampire comic, but that's a real thing. It's somebody has magically caused all these characters to just pour out this dark energy. It blacks out the sun. And what does that mean? It means now vampires they don't need to worry about daylight coming. It's free game. So all of a sudden, armies of vampires just start descending on the world, and the superheroes have to fight back. Here's like something that I would consider tame, but like as an example of what they do in this. See here, like this vampire's got a hand. In like the censored version, it's just like a vampire. There's no hand. So that's not so bad. That's not so bad. It's a little bleak, right? Because all these people like throughout the world are getting killed by vampires. And you do sort of think, okay, well, what happens with some of these event books? Here's what could happen in this that would cause me to turn on it, okay? Let me break this down. If an event has a good premise and it escalates the stakes, a pun, the stakes, which I think this does, cool. All right, we get villain, we get a problem. How are the heroes going to solve that problem? Here's what I don't like in superhero event comics. You make things like apocalyptic. Heroes are dying. All sorts of stuff is happening that's bad. And then you're like, okay, so somebody's just going to magically reset things at the end. It's going to be tough for them, but they're going to somehow, go back in time, or, snap an infinity gauntlet and people are back to life. I don't like that. I don't like that you made things apocalyptic and then you reset it. I want things to get up to the point where it's like, how are they going to solve this problem? Like the world is doomed. And then somehow the hero does something clever that stops the bad guys. That is good storytelling, in my opinion, as compared to a reset button. I don't love the reset, because here's the thing that happens with the reset. Usually it brings back a bunch of the superheroes, but all the collateral damage, like just innocent people, never addressed. Don't like that. Just don't like that. So if it does that, if it does a magical reset at the end, I'm not going to love that. I'll just put that out there. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, we've got like these vampires, and, the Avengers and other superheroes are sort of keeping on top of that. And Blade reaches out to the Avengers and is like, hey, teleport me up to, your satellite base, and I'm going to like tell you how to defeat the vampires. I'm the expert here. And they're like, good. This is the one person we need to talk to. But when his truck gets teleported up, we get a bunch of new supervillains. These are super vampires, and they don't feed on blood. They feed on different things. One of them feeds on magic. Another one feeds on people's pain. Another one feeds on like psychic imagery. Okay. All right. Fair enough. We get some big, tough enemies, and they just like take down the Avengers like hardcore. They are so bad that the Avengers just like really take a beating. And a couple of the Avengers, not exactly like necessarily killed, but it's close. Like Thor gets some sort of a shard through his head, but he's a god, so he can kind of come back from that, right? It's dangerous, and it's going so badly that Black Panther teleports Captain America away so that like there's at least one survivor that could act as a symbol of hope. And I'm not going to like give away the sort of the twist ending here, but there is a twist that like shows who the person or the entity behind this vampire plan is. And it's a surprise. It's a surprise. I liked it because the art looks good. It has an interesting premise for like why the vampires can attack now by blocking out the sun. And, it escalates the stakes. I'll make that sort of pun again. It escalates the stakes by the world and the Avengers and the superheroes just like really getting their ass kicked. Okay, it could go well. I don't know how many people read this. Yeah, that's the thing. They're like, could it be Dracula? This doesn't seem like the kind of thing Dracula does. Dracula actually doesn't really want an army of vampires. He wants to be like kind of the only vampire in Marvel Comics. Dracula's very selfish and very like slow. He plans ahead for like decades at a time because he's lived so long. Yes, this is all canon. This is all canon. This is their new event. And yeah, there's going to be a bunch of like sort of spin-offs and crossover sort of things. I don't love that. But it comes out pretty regularly, and there's like 5 issues of this. So I think within less than 2 months, it should be wrapped up. I'm going to read the 5 issues of Blood Hunt, at least so far, based on what I saw here. I like Pepe Larraz's artwork. I think Jed MacKay does good character work that feels authentic to what we know about the characters, puts them in new situations, has good dialogue, believable. So yeah, there probably will be too many tie-ins. Hopefully, I'll stay with just Blood Hunt and see if it makes sense. We'll see. We'll see. But I like the first issue. And the final page is super gory in this version, whereas it's much more innocent in the regular version. But basically, it looks like one of the main heroes might have been taken out. We will see. What else did I get this week? Now, here's something that you'd think, okay, Chris liked Blood Hunt with all of these vampires just like willy-nilly taking out people and superheroes. How could he not like Get Fury, a Punisher Nick Fury story by Garth Ennis? I think Garth Ennis can write a great Punisher story, can write a great Nick Fury story. He's done it in the Max sort of line before. I found this very bleak, too bleak for me to truly enjoy, although the premise is fantastic. I will say that. We go back to Vietnam, okay? I think it's like 1971. And yeah, February 1971 in Vietnam. America's at war. Nick Fury has been captured by the North Vietnamese army. Nick Fury knows all of America's big secrets. He's too deep in the territory for them for America's military to do an effective rescue. They don't feel that they can do that. So instead, they hire Marine Frank Castle. This is before he ever becomes the Punisher, but he's pretty messed up. They hire Punisher to go out and assassinate Nick Fury. That's why it's called Get Fury. That's a decent premise. Having Punisher hunting down Nick Fury and Nick Fury behind enemy lines. But it's also very bleak and very dark. Like there's some other soldiers with Nick Fury that, the Vietnamese army kills. They also use a couple slurs that, yes, people used back then, but it's rough. It's not fun. It's not fun to hear those slurs in a superhero-esque comic. It doesn't fit very well. Oh, that's a good question. The art is by Jason Burrows, and Jason's a good artist. And I think if you look at it, there's a little something like Steve Dillon. And I think that the Steve Dillon artwork with Garth Ennis stories for Punisher, a lot of them were really, really good. Really, really good. Well, Nick Fury, canonically in Marvel Comics, takes something called the Infinity Formula, and that has allowed him to basically halt his aging. So, yes, he originally did serve in World War II, but in the comics, he did serve through Vietnam before basically helping found SHIELD, the international spy agency in the more modern day. It's just a really dark story with like a lot of the military treating each other like crap. Apocalypse Now is about something. Apocalypse Now is about the horrors of war. And I guess this is too. But there's definitely a difference between using superhero characters to tell a realistic war story and just telling a story about the horrors of war. So there's a difference there. Although, to be fair, this is not technically in mainstream Marvel continuity, even though it matches very closely. Max continuity is slightly separate. It's almost just Nick Fury and Frank Castle to a degree. I think that there might have been War Machine like technically sharing that continuity too, but it's not very important. It's darker. I think that this is something like a 5-issue series. So none of those 10-issue series that we heard about in the news earlier tonight that Dan Buckley was talking about. I think Apocalypse Now is fantastic, even though that's a dark movie. There was the recent movie Civil War that's really scary because of how scary war is. But that's very different than basically one American soldier being tasked with assassinating another American soldier. It's a very cynical view, isn't it? It's like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there could be easily, as it goes forward, a twist where, Frank Castle will ultimately decide to team up with Nick Fury and help him escape. I won't be surprised if that's how this resolves. I don't think he's going to kill Nick Fury. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. But it didn't work for me too well. And I like a lot of Garth Ennis stuff, is what I'm trying to say. I like a lot of Garth Ennis Punisher stuff, Preacher. There's been a lot that I like. And sometimes it's just too cynical for me. There have been Punisher stories that I didn't enjoy. Like the one where he makes there's more than one actually example where he makes Wolverine look like an absolute imbecile. Cynical but real. But that doesn't necessarily mean entertaining or that I'm getting something out of it. I'll probably read at least the next issue to see if it catches me a little bit more. Maybe it's not going to be quite as bleak as this issue seems to be establishing things. I wanted to like it, and for some reason I didn't. And that's the closest I can come up with for why I didn't love it, is that it felt like darker than what I want. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say about some of the other stuff that came out that I did like. Incredible Hulk has Nick Klein back. It's great. Immortal Thor continues to do fascinating meta stuff. Really escalates Enchantress as a villain. It's good, but I don't have a lot to say. It's serialized superhero fiction, and neither of these are changing the status quo that much. But I do think that these are two good superhero runs right now, for the record. What I will talk about instead is this: a new book from DSTLRY called The Blood Brothers' Mother, and it's by Azarello and Risso. the people that did 100 Bullets, which is a very good book, in my opinion. This is a Western. This is also bleak, but bleak doesn't have to mean mean-spirited necessarily, although there's a little of that in here, to be fair. But essentially, we've got like this horrible person, okay? He's getting out of a Mexican prison. His posse has bought his freedom, and the posse gets together, like sort of recaps what's happened over the last couple of years, which includes the fact that this man's girlfriend has changed her name and gotten married to a preacher. She has 3 young sons, each by different men. They're very young. I'm trying to get ahead. So yeah, there's this preacher who seems to be overall, he's a hard man, but he's a good man, and he's adopted these 3 kids as his own. But one night, that scoundrel comes to their house, and he's like, I'm gonna take Anna with me, and she knows how dangerous this guy is, so she willingly goes with the expectation that, this posse won't kill the rest of them. But things do go kind of bad, and essentially it ends with 3 young kids determined to save their mother, but they're kids. But they're gonna go after this small posse of absolute worst of the worst criminals. So it is dark. It's dark, but I think you have to establish what kind of a world it is and how dangerous it would be. Yeah, I do agree with you. The distillery model is a little expensive for print. This one was $9. Now it's much bigger than a typical book. It's also, sized differently. That's just what they do. But it's a good size. I think it looks good. I've always liked Eduardo Risso's art. I believe he's an Argentinian artist. Argentina has a fantastic history of making great comics and having great comic artists move and live there and get into that scene. And Azarello is fantastic at people right on the edge, criminals, or people like Constantine. He had a great Hellblazer run. Yeah, France does love Westerns, and I totally see what you're talking about. There is almost a little bit of something like Mobius's Blueberry or something. There's almost something like that. He is Argentinian. Thank you. I thought I had that right. Thank you for confirming. There are 1 or 2 pages where the storytelling confused me slightly. I felt like Risso was trying to maybe get too much done in too few panels. Let me see if I can even find a good example, though, because I didn't bookmark it or anything like that. All right, like this. That Carter Kane is that bad guy that got out of prison, okay? He's getting off his horse here, and there's some new posse members to greet him. And this guy's reaching out his hand to shake hello. And then we've got this shot, that's a close-up of grabbing a bottle of beer or something out of somebody's hand. And then this guy just sort of being snubbed. And at first I'm going wait, whose hands are whose? But this one isn't part of this. It's there's 2 people here, and I didn't see it very well, but there's one guy reaching out his hand to welcome Carter, and there's a second guy that happens to be have this bottle. And I didn't quite understand that at first. I had to kind of go back and look at this panel, the establishing shot, very carefully. So it's not like it's bad. It's just that it wasn't super clear to me. Your mileage may vary. There's a couple little examples like that, a couple. But I do like Risso's style. I think that it's a really good fit, honestly, for a Western. I do. I think that these backgrounds and the coloring is great, just great. It was a little confusing. I'm not the only one thinking that. Appreciate that. Risso does do the colors, folks, as well as this artwork. So it feels very organic. Great color palette This feels like dry, dusty, Southern California, Western Texas, Northern Mexico, sort of, Badlands. It looks good. It looks really good. It's definitely, this is not an all ages adventure though, just to be clear. This is a pretty bleak, bleak is overstating it. Just serious and dark, Western. But Westerns, that's just what Westerns are. That's just what Westerns are a lot of the time. They're not really fun adventures most of the time. Colors are great. Colors are great. I did read one other thing that I thought I'd talk about briefly, because this is the second volume in it, but there's this manga called Dan to Dan. And Dan to Dan is by Yukinobu Tatsu. And Tatsu publishes this story on Shonen Jump Plus. This is digital initially, and then it gets collected in these print tankobon volumes. And as compared, the premise is just very funny, folks. This is a really funny book. There are these two high schoolers, a popular girl, Momo, and a nerdy guy, Ken. And one day they sort of each meet each other. She's kind of sticking up for this kid. And Momo talks about how she believes in spirits and yokai, stuff like that. And Ken talks about how like those don't exist, but aliens do. And they each dare each other to go to, respectively, the most haunted location in town and the most alien sighting place in town. And they both end up being right. So this is a world where, there are aliens and there are demons and stuff. And these two unlikely people start to become really close friends as they battle against these weird spirits that are out there in the world. It's funny and it's charming. It's really, really good. And I like the artwork quite a bit. It tends to have some pretty realistic detail to it. Okay, hold on. A few people saying like, yes, love Dan to Dan. Love it. That's nice. A couple people saying they're stoked for the anime. Love it. Vincent says Miss Ayase, who's Momo, just to be on the same page, is more an outsider rough girl than popular. That's somewhat true. I do know what you're saying. These are well-developed characters, but she has friends. She does have friends. But so I don't know about rough. I feel like is a little overstating it. She is a little bit of an outsider, but she has a bunch of friends, whereas Ken doesn't really. Yeah, I like this. Sorry. Let me get, I'm a stand for Dan to Dan. Anyway, it's got interesting mythology. It's got funny characters and unexpected little events. It's something different. And there's something very charming about these two finding each other and having trouble connecting because they're so different, but also having an even harder time not being able to talk to each other from time to time. They really start to care for each other, and they might. I'm very early, but it seems like there might be sort of a background romance developing over time. So anyway, I really do recommend this. It is funny. It's not funny in the same way that like one of my favorites, Spy Family is, but it's similarly really good art and a funny premise, and it's bonkers. It's bonkers. No, I actually didn't read Loveless, so I probably should someday. Do I think Skybound is making a mistake with the Energon Universe one-shot being a reprint? No, not necessarily. I think that they are aware of how much demand there is. They can only produce so many of each of these, and if people missed out on the free version, I put it as S tier. That means I think it's absolutely worth paying something for. So if you didn't get to go to Free Comic Book Day and it sold out, or it didn't sell out, but it like disappeared, I think that Energon Universe Special is totally worth picking up. Totally worth picking up. Very, very good book. And I'll be honest, I'm gonna be very curious to actually look at the paid version that comes out in a week or two and see if they've added like maybe another page or anything like that. Because it feels like there might be something there. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Dan to Dan is very bonkers, but in a really entertaining, charming way. Very charming. No, I didn't have time to go see the Spy Family movie. I also haven't seen the anime, but like, yeah, the movie at least would be a news story to me. I love the manga though. I love how Dan to Dan utilizes a lot of fisheye camera views. That is a great point, EJ. Let me see if I could find a good one, because I also did notice that when I'm talking about the good art, and I go, doing various perspectives is one thing, but getting a bit of that fisheye perspective, that's not very easy. I know there's a couple of good examples in this particular manga, so give me a moment. I'm going to see if I can find one. Where was it? I think there's one where they get on a train, and it was like a 2-page spread. Let me see. This is sort of an example of that, actually. Yes. Let me highlight this. Here is a 2-page spread with Momo on top of a high-speed train. This sort of giant crab demon was chasing them. And once it crosses this mystical barrier, it sort of bursts into flames. But that's a bit of that fisheye perspective EJ is talking about. If you look, there really is a gentle curve to all of the architecture here. And that just means that it's a little more complex than just say like a simple 1-point or 2-point perspective. It's there's some artists that can pull it off very well. Man, Junji Ito. Excuse me, that is not who I meant to say. I meant to think of Korean artist Kim Jung-gi. Kim Jung-gi, the late great Kim Jung-gi, could do fantastic fisheye perspectives by sight. He didn't have to map anything out. He just went to ink, and it looked incredible. I think I've seen Daniel Warren Johnson do a little bit of it. I won't be surprised if he does more as he moves on and wants to challenge himself. I was seeing if I found another fisheye perspective. I don't have another great example off the top of my head, but that's a great observation. EJ. Thank you for adding that. I appreciate it. Yeah, Kim Jung-gi, one of my favorites. Got to meet him several times. Got some sketches by him. Boy, I miss him. Just an incredible artist. I didn't know that it already has an anime series. Oh, I would be curious to check that out. I didn't know that. Let's see. How about 10 minutes of drawing? How about 10 minutes, and then I'll end it. I'll end the show just before 7. Here's why I'm going to end it on time. This week on Netflix, one of my favorite comedians is John Mulaney. He's got a live show on Netflix that's going to start at the top of the hour. But I'll draw a little bit. I'll just ink a tiny bit on something that I've already started, and I'll open it up to questions. I'll open it up if there or comments, whatever people have to talk about. I'm listening. That's my Fraser Crane impression. I'm listening. Not I'm listening, Niles. Oh, really, Niles? That's a terrible impression. But I'm open to things. Oh, yeah, Kim Jung-gi. God Loves Comics is in the chat and comments on how fast Kim Jung-gi could draw. It was special. It was special. It was great to be able to see him work in person. He had a real confidence, and I don't know exactly how he was able to do what he did, but he could just sort of draw complex machinery or people, like tons of people, all sorts of things in perspective, and it's just just his talent. You know, he was special in that regard. All right, I'm going a little too fast for myself, and I'm sort of making sloppy lines. So I'm going to like slow down a little bit. If I'm going to draw, I might as well get some of this line work good. That's the technical term that artists use. I'm going to do good art. Oh, yeah, Space Ghost, huh? Space Ghost was good? I haven't read that. No, I didn't pick it up. Yes, I do have Spy Games. Very, very cool. Very cool. One of the few comics that he did. So, yeah, I do have that. Mm-hmm. I did not hear anything like that. No. That would be interesting. Thank you, Dr. Schubel. Nothing fancy, just sort of doodling out a Gundam, of which I think I've said before, I've built some of these in the past, but I really don't know anything about its story. I've never watched or read anything about Gundam, so I don't really know very well what Gundam specifically is. I mean, I know it's big robot sort of mechs, I should say, that you can ride, and I think there might be aliens, but I'm not sure. I just don't know. What else are we seeing? World's Best Comics is one of my local comic shops. Well, I hope that they recover well. Gundam is a civil war between spacers and Earthers. Oh, so it's all humans, but just like people that still live on Earth and people that are like that have expanded to the other planets. Is that what am I interpreting that right from what you just said? If I'm not, please correct me. I just think they look cool. When I lived in Virginia, I got into the habit of building those models, and I built a lot of them. But when I moved across the country, I had to get rid of a lot of stuff. I had too many things, and so I just dropped them all off at Goodwill. So I hope that some kid out there gets some enjoyment from them. I don't know. I had a lot. And it sort of hurts in some ways to let stuff like that go. And in another way, folks, it is so freeing to unload collections. It's so freeing. Oh, I like Secret Galaxy, so I'll watch that. Thanks for the heads up. Thanks for the heads up. Cool. Okay. Appreciate the background. Thank you. But I didn't have time. I ended up like getting a job and having to move pretty quickly, to be honest. So I didn't really have time. Like I sold about 28 to 30 long boxes of comics for $1,000. That was all I could do. I did not get anywhere close to the value of my comics collection, but it was the best I could get, and I needed to downsize, so I took it. I'm positive that the guy that bought them planned to just resell them, but what can you do? You know, I'll take what I can get because I couldn't take it with me. Not all of it. I know some people's brains are probably exploding right about now thinking of like what I gave away, but you know, in all honesty, some of it like felt really good to just have less stuff. Well, Godzilla was definitely the villain in -1 from late last year. I heard a rumor, by the way, that the next that they are going to make a sequel to -1, and that they're strongly considering using Biolante as the villain. I am all in if they do that, because loved -1, and Biolante, definitely one of the more visually interesting villains or enemy kaiju that Gojira has gone up against. Very, very cool idea. Yeah, curious what they do with that. Who knows? Wait, is that a super chat? Am I rich beyond my wildest dreams? If it's at least $2, I am. YouTube channel Bonsai Pop has Gundam episode recaps, but I'd probably enjoy watching them more than I'd enjoy watching recaps, just to be clear. Godzilla Wars is probably in my top 5, just for entertainment value. I love Godzilla. Yeah, that's true. I could sort of understand how it could potentially work, considering Biolante was also sort of like had some history with, like, being tied to a dead girl and stuff, and maybe they could like tie that in with some of the people that had just been killed in the bombing of in World War II. I don't know. That's dark, but that's sometimes how Godzilla works best, is dealing with real things. I think that Shin Godzilla is one of the best, one of their best. I have lots of good things to say about Shin Godzilla. Shin. Oh, I get to go back to Japan, folks. I'm so excited. It's not for quite a while, and it is going to be brief, but in January, and I know that's pretty far away actually, but January, Chrissy and I are going to go back to Japan for I think it's 8 days, maybe it's 9. It's not a huge trip, but it's decent, and I'm excited because I really like going there. I really like it. Bonsai Pop did a whole video essay. I recommend it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I'm excited. It's probably going to be just Tokyo, since it's like a shorter visit. We'll see. January is pretty far away, so that gives us a lot of time to plan. I really felt hard for Osaka in my last visit, and I'd been there before, but not for a long time. And yeah, I would love to go back to Osaka. Very, very nice city. There's a lot to recommend there. But flying into that sort of region, Osaka or Kyoto, was way more expensive, and basically we just got a really good deal. So that's mainly why we're going, is because we just got a really great price. Really good. Anyway, it'll be nice. Oh, is it 10 days? Maybe that would be enough to like do sort of like half and half with Osaka and Tokyo and have a good time. We'll see. We'll see. Something to think about. Something to think about. But it's still a ways off. Bob Eggleton has done tons of Godzilla paintings. We're complaining about some people accused him of using AI, which is absolutely not true. I'm definitely against AI, but we need to be careful. There are people that are getting accused of using AI that are just digital painters and have been for a long time. So it's tricky. There are clues and signs that it may be AI, but if we don't know for sure, we just, you don't want to condemn someone without actual evidence. And it's tricky. It's tricky, but I would say let's give people space to prove themselves. If there's a bunch of evidence, then maybe that's a news story, but let's be careful. Let's be careful of what we say for other people. Yeah, it's weird. I think that it's going to become way more common for artists to start occasionally posting sketches and process shots to just sort of prove their work. Which, you know, like, it's interesting to see, but it is a tiny bit sad that that's what we've come to, that like artists feel the need to prove their work now. So I'm going to try to start being careful. I'm going to like be very careful with AI stories. It's tricky. Artists should share more sketches because sketches are cool. And that's fair. But, you know, working artists have to do a lot of art. And if you have to like include process shots of everything you're doing to prove what you're doing, that's just bonkers. Did you notice the news about the site Multiversity Comics is closing at the end of May? I did not see that. I like a lot of what they do. That's too bad. That's too bad. I like a lot of what they do. Artists at cons already saw AI sellers in Artists Alley. I wonder, but how can we be sure? You know, how can we be sure? I don't know. Eggleton definitely didn't use AI. He paints traditionally, as far as I know. I believe you, EJ. I know how you feel about that, and I'm sure you have a very good, well-educated eye for spotting, you know, potential AI versus original art. But I think we just all need to err on the side of caution, because the last thing you want to do is gang up on somebody and condemn them when we don't know for sure, right? I don't think I need to say too much more about that. I think these days a lot of us are on the same page there. But I'm about to wrap it up. I had a fun time on this episode, thanks to all of you. I really appreciate that you guys add so much to the conversation. Means a lot to me. Means a lot to me. I always have a really fun time doing this show. Have a great time talking to all people with all sorts of different opinions. Trust me, I don't need you to agree with everything I say. I like hearing a diverse range of opinions on the news stories of the day. But I think that I'm going to end it so that Chrissy and I can watch that live John Mulaney Netflix show together, if that's okay. And I'll be back soon. Oh, by the way, Comic Tropes, I've got at least halfway edited, so it'll be up in 2 to 3 days tops. I think 2 to 3 days. I work tomorrow, so probably won't have much time to edit then. But I'll do a little editing tonight after like dinner and everything, and then maybe like one more full day, like 8 hour, 10 hours, maybe more. Anyway, tell you what, thank you for being with me. I'll give you something very special. The double salute. Bomp. You earned it. Thank you all. Cannot wait to talk about comics with you next week. Keep an eye on Comic Tropes. And if you haven't yet, if you can hit things like and subscribe here, that really helps me. Would love it if folks checked out the other show that I do on this channel, Trash Movie Bonanza. I'm having a blast doing that. That just keeps me and Jim excited to, you know, hang out and talk and have fun. Look at how dark it gets when I turn the special spotlight off. I'm all of a sudden in shadow. I'm Batman. All right. Take care, everybody. Keep reading comics.